they gave me the wrong science test. I think I was studying biology at the time and they gave me a chemistry test. And I was actually too scared to put my hand up and say to them, like, you've made a mistake. And everyone in the room was quiet. And I was just like, oh my God, freaking out. And I thought, okay, I'll just do it. And I don't know, like my ability, whatever, but I got a much better score in that test. I got one of the highest grades I'd gotten.
Many people have intuitive gifts, but very few bridge them into research. What made you pursue a rigorous structure rather than staying in the spiritual lane?
This is kind of the process. I've got like kind of, the little process that it goes through, and you've got that then turns into that, right? So you've got predominantly, you can kind of see their black hole, white hole kind of thing. And you've got predominantly light with a little bit of dark.
Basically, there is no lack in reality, but we perceive that there's lack. So because we perceive there's lack, we create the lack through our perception and belief. But in reality, there is no lack. Hey Conscious Man 7 family, quick question before we start. Do you love the depth of these conversations but hate when ads break the flow? I get it. Ads can feel like speed bumps on a highway, pulling you out of that deep zone. That's why we created a way for you to enjoy every episode completely ad-free while supporting the show at the same time. For just a few bucks a month on Patreon or Locals, you'll get full access to uninterrupted episodes. You'll get direct access to me so you can ask me any questions that you have, some cool other perks like early releases, and you'll also help us keep bringing you the powerful conversations that mainstream platforms won't touch. The link is in the show notes. Join us there and be part of this movement. Ever look up and see those dull, grey skies streaked with chemtrails and you feel your energy sink? You're not imagining it. Something in you knows the sky isn't supposed to look that way. But what if you could bring back the blue? What if there was a way to clear the air inside you and above you? That's where the Chembo comes in. They create powerful orgonite, tools that generate orgone energy, the life force that helps neutralize EMFs from your mobile phone, your Wi-Fi, and even 5G. It's nature's way of restoring balance, bringing cleaner air, calmer energy, and deeper sleep. Every piece from the Chembo is handmade, from tactical tower busters to beautiful pyramids and jewelry, crafted with the precise ingredients to generate real orgone energy. And here's the best part. They've proven it. For over 10 years, they've cleared thousands of miles of chemtrails, bringing the blue back to the skies around the world. So if you're ready to take back your weather and your well-being, go to thechembo.com. Use coupon code CM7 for 10% off and experience the shift for yourself. Don't fear the chemtrails or the EMF. Be empowered with the Chembo and never feel helpless again. If you are new to this podcast, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share, because that helps us to be recommended in the algorithms. If you would like to support this podcast, please check out our merch store on Amazon with the brand Todd and Me. We've got some cool t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and sweaters. Link will be in the description of this podcast. And if you're now starting a spiritual journey, you would like to start a spiritual journey, or you're currently on a spiritual journey and you would like some help removing some fears and traumas, please hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 and it will help you to get some magic mushrooms. Enjoy the show and stay tuned because we have some more great content coming soon. What if your DNA wasn't just a biological code, but a modem, a living receiver transmitting you into a conscious universe? Hello, beautiful and amazing people. Welcome back to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. I am your host, Todd Cave, and today's episode may change how you view your body, your mind, and your place in the universe. My guest today is Sarah Marks, founder of Anaka, a researcher, mystic channeler, and the architect behind a revolutionary model she calls the Anaka Theorem. Her work bridges deep extrasensory abilities, clairvoyance, trance intelligence, remote viewing, with emerging quantum biology and sound research. Sarah believes our DNA is alive, biologically structured to interface with a network she calls natural intelligence, a living informational field far beyond artificial intelligence. Using sound, geometry, magnetism, and biological signaling, her work aims to evolve how we heal, how we make decisions, and how we access the intelligence our body has carried for millennia. In today's episode, we explore Sarah's origin story, the science and metaphysics behind the Anaka framework, the role of sound in DNA modulation, how intuition and channeling actually function, and what humanity looks like when we reconnect with this biological internet. Get ready, this one is deep, layered, and could genuinely shift the paradigm of what it means to be human.
When truth is blurred by lies and misinformation, perception becomes reality. What will you perceive your reality to be?
Liberate your fears and walk with me.
Sit down and meditate. Connect with your soul.
Be a monster and then learn how to control it.
You gotta be willing to do the work.
So it really goes really deep in terms of words and etymology and what they mean. So this is why it is really hard to really crack the matrix, because there's so many levels and layers to it, Hello, Sarah. Welcome to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am very well, and I'm really excited to talk to you today because when we first met and you told me the stuff that you do, I was like, okay, yes, we need to have a conversation on the show, because while these are things that I know about and I have understanding of them, to actually meet someone that can do these things was like, okay, this one is one that I know my listeners will enjoy. And I think they can probably be getting some popcorn and putting up their feet and listening to this one, because even talking to you before recording, I was like, wow, because some of the stuff you were telling me just like blowing my mind. So I'm really, really keen to talk to you today and, share your story and learn more about the Anaka theorem, So
Yeah.
for listeners discovering your work for the first time, who were you before Anaka, and what were the early abilities or experiences that made you question the mainstream model of human consciousness?
Oh man, do you know that I was born this way? I was literally born this way. So I have memories actually as early as being about 2 or 3, where I would have things show me stuff like entities. I would feel forces and the presence of things, and I understood that they didn't all have a sex. They weren't all male or female. Some of them were elemental, some of them. This is where I guess, I've been questioning it since I was just a baby because of that nature. There was such a variation. And I actually didn't understand when I was little that other people weren't experiencing that as well. And it was something that I didn't really talk about. But, look, I had a lot of trauma when I was very young. I wasn't baptized or anything like that when I was young either. So it was very interesting. I kind of came into this world experiencing both varieties. I experienced, angels and a lot of light beings. And it was fascinating because they told me when I was really young, they were like, this is what is going to happen to you when you're older. And like, you're going to do this. And I would dance around the living room like 3 years old going, I'm going to do this, mummy. And like, they would just be telling me things. And that's my first experiences. I would say very strong mediumship when I was young. I didn't realize back then I was a very strong channeler, and I had it all kind of going on and I could see the future. So all of these things, I'm like, I to this day, I'll be like, okay, for example, okay, mum's going down the street. She'll be back in 23 minutes and 34 seconds. Bang, she'll be back in exactly that time. And I'm like, yeah. And then like the other day, it was funny. I was looking for this item of clothing, right? And I was looking on these secondhand stores and I was like, oh. And then psychically my being will go, it just knows. And it'll go, it'll like react psychically. It'll go, oh, wow, oh my God, it's available. Oh, this is so exciting. And then I'll go and look on a site and there it is, you know? So
Wow. That's
yeah. And I mean, it kind of started when I was young, but it really evolved as then I got older, and I would be able to do things like stop breathing for 5 minutes. You know, like I'd be able to turn lights on at will. And very strong when I lay hands on people. People say like, whoa, they can feel like all this channeling and stuff. It's really interesting. So I've got kind of healing abilities as well. But yeah, like a lot. I call it the circus, but I was born with it. So the earliest memories really probably about like the ages of around 2 or 3 when I kind of first remember those elements of it. And then because I had a really bad experience actually by the time I was 5, and then I remember it shutting down. It's like it didn't shut down. It was like it was there, but it went in. It's like I became more subconsciously aware of it because it showed me something really bad when I was about 3 or 4. This dark thing came to me and showed me something extremely messed up. And then it happened to me about a year or something. I don't know. I don't quite remember. I think it was about a year or so after that. And I think that's when it really freaked me out. So yeah, it's been a very interesting story.
well, yeah,
Very interesting.
to say the least, because I mean, before we were talking, you said that you would just meet like people that are very extraordinary. Like you were talking about
Yes.
the guy that just levitated in front of you and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
I mean,
like a good 10 seconds.
I mean, what I would say is like when I was listening to your trailer, you know, today when I was like doing the research and preparing the questions and stuff, your trailer was very powerful for me because it resonated like on a very, very high level. And I was like, okay, this is going to be a very interesting conversation today because I could feel just through the video that the stuff that you share is very powerful, you know? So when did you first realize your clairvoyance, trance states, and channeling weren't just anomalies, but part of a larger intelligent system?
This was more recently. Up until then, to be honest, I've had a very difficult journey with it. And so much so it's really been quite isolating, very, very, very challenging, to put it mildly, because things will affect your physical health and stuff. These abilities affect your physical health on a given day in ways that people just can't fathom, that don't understand, that don't kind of have that activated. You know, it's very hard you can't realize something that you don't see, kind of thing. But yeah, I think I would say, look, when Arnika was kind of conceived in 2017. That's when I actually just first understood this kind of basic algorithm and this basic rule, and it all just kind of evolved from there. And that's kind of been the journey. It's interesting because it didn't start off as Arnika. I actually named it something else. And I realized that the theorem that I'd named it was incomplete, like a half a parody in its structure. So it's really interesting how it's evolved. H equals M is the rule, and that's always been that kind of way. So I'd say about 2017, because prior to that, I didn't really understand the abilities. I couldn't really understand, you know, the logic behind it. I like, to be honest, look, I didn't grow up in an environment that was very conducive of these abilities or spirituality in general. Kind of, you know, yeah, grew up with more an atheist kind of in an atheist environment. So in an interesting way, though, that kind of ended up working to my benefit as I got older, because made me look into it in a way that maybe I wouldn't have looked at if I grew up in a different environment. So I kind of learned to be thankful for that. It's when I started realizing that, hey, you know what? I'm not a freak. I'm actually normal. I've just, you know, up until then, I got to tell you, like, it's been really hard. And I started realizing, nah, there is nothing wrong with me. Like, I am completely normal. I've just got things going on that other people don't. That's all. I don't think it's that other people don't have the capacity. I think everybody has an individual gift within that. I think that's what we bring in. I think that's like the ancient Egyptians said, that everybody has a ka, a ba, and an arc. And everybody's personality and their gift will be like a fingerprint. No one is designed exactly the same way, which is kind of the beauty of it, which means you'll have a gift or you have something to contribute that is individual to you that nobody else has. But as for these abilities, I think that a lot of people have the capacity, but it's dormant. And I just realized that things were going off in me, in my brain, and things will be activating in me that just simply don't in other people. But it doesn't mean that other people don't have that capacity. And I started delving. I mean, I used to work in sound, and it kind of started going into sound and maths, and then it just kind of veered into science, which I never would have expected or anticipated in my life. It's something that just kind of, it happened organically. So that's when I was able to start understanding what was happening in me, what my ability is, like being able to truly understand it and then respecting it as well. Because I got to tell you, up until then, it's just, I haven't really looked at it in the greatest light all the time. It's been just because of, you know, the challenges that it places, because, you know, a lot of society doesn't understand these things. So thereby they kind of scrutinize it, which makes it very difficult when you are somebody that stands out like that. You've got something so unique. Instead of it being celebrated, a lot of the time it's actually scrutinized. So it's been a really big journey for myself as well, of self-discovery and realizing that there's nothing wrong with me. It's actually, you know, completely normal, can be explained scientifically.
So when you were growing up as a kid, what was it like in terms of like interacting with other kids? So were you able to like see, for example, if you're playing that someone was going to fall, and then would you like tell them, hey, be careful, you're going to fall and stuff like that? Like how did you deal with situations like that, like as a child and playing and all that kind of stuff?
It's really interesting because I can see how people are going to die.
What
happens all? Yeah, I can see when and how people are going to die, which could be pretty like full on for me. I've learned it's so funny. I'll come into contact with someone. My mum knows me really well. She'll just see me get a look or something, and she'll be like, "Oh, what is Sarah picking up on?" Sometimes I'll just get a look or something. I've kind of learned not to talk about it because it can be a big deal, you know. Like, I think sometimes when I like at school, I don't think I really talked about it that much. I don't think. Like, I think I said to someone once, oh, like I saw someone in the back garden, like I've seen entities and things like that. I would talk to some kids about that, but I wasn't in an environment that was very, you know, like I said, you know, it was a very atheist-based environment. People weren't really, you know, kind of accepting of that stuff. So I didn't really talk about it. But as I got older, it really just like, especially when my marriage ended, it was like, that was it was like I died. In a dream, I died. It was really surreal. I had this dream and it was the most real dream I've ever had. Like, I didn't feel like I was dreaming. And in my dream, it's like I don't know, like I was falling or something happened and something just like, it's like I was having a heart attack or something and it just went bang and like I died. And as I died, I kind of woke up and I woke up like all my senses that had just turned on again, like fully conscious. It's like I literally transformed or something. And it was at the time that I broke up with my ex-husband, and it was incredible because it's been nonstop since then. It evolves so quickly and it's such a rapid rate. And it's constantly evolving kind of things. It's really interesting, but I've learned to not, you know, it's a hard, you don't really want to tell someone like, hey, you know, you're going to die. I think I've said it like a few times in my life. I know someone that I was like, oh my gosh, like you're going to die in 56 years and it's going to be really fast. It'll be like a heart thing, you know? So, you know, or it's like, you know, I know how my mum's going to pass away. The other day I saw how, I don't know if I should say, like I saw how one famous person is going to die the other day, and it just sometimes it just happens really out of nowhere. Like I'll see them on TV or something and immediately it comes to me, I get an image of like when they're going to die and what of, and I can kind of, I don't know, but I've just learnt kind of not to talk about it because it can be very distressing to some people when you see things so clearly, or people just get very dependent on it. And I feel like that can be a bit dangerous too, because I used to just be very, I used to make things happen for people. Like I would be very supportive and I would keep telling them things and I would, but then I kind of started realizing when you do that, it doesn't always help the other person, if you get my gist. Like actually sometimes what can happen is they become reliant on that. And by becoming reliant or holding on to that information that you're giving them, it's like them holding on is blocking the flow, and then that starts interrupting everything. So I've noticed and then I started realizing, you know what, I think if people don't have that going on, it's, there's a reason, and, you've got to look at something, is this beneficial, is it not, kind of thing. So I find that now I kind of don't really discuss things like that as much. But when I used to, people would be like, a lot of the time people would be like, oh my God, because they'd be like, oh my God, that happened. I'll be like, this will happen in a month. This will happen in 1.5 months. That person's going to get sick. This is going to happen then. This is going to happen. I tell them all the future and this is kind of what you need to do to navigate it. This is what's going to happen. That'll be okay. I can do energy on things as well, which can kind of, I don't know why, but I've just always had this natural ability when I kind of, I know how to kind of do energy on things to kind of help shift stuff, and it can be, pretty influential. But again, it's it's something that I don't probably play with as much anymore, just because I know that if you start influencing things, then you play out in something's karma. It's kind of like you create a karmic tie almost, because it's without your influence would this be happening? So then if this doesn't work for this person, you've become an influence in that. Does that tie you to them? Will that be beneficial?
Very, very interesting. So I'm curious then, when you were at school, could you see the questions that they were going to ask you for tests and all that kind of stuff, so you would know what to study prior to get A's and stuff like that? Because for me, if I had that ability, that's what I'd be doing as a kid, It
was pretty funny, actually. I got bullied by the teachers pretty bad at my school. It actually became a bit of a problem. So my parents finally took me out when it was year 11. It was like, oh my God, it was so bad by then. But it was really funny, right? Because they gave me the wrong science test. I think I was studying biology at the time, and they gave me a chemistry test. And I was actually too scared to put my hand up and say to them, you've made a mistake. And everyone in the room was quiet. And I was just like, oh my God, freaking out. And I thought, okay, I'll just do it. And I don't know, my ability, whatever, but I got a much better score in that test. I got one of the highest grades I'd gotten. And then they realized they gave me the wrong test and they gave me the other one. And they were like, how did you get a better score on this test? Kind of thing, couldn't really explain it. So there's been funny little things like that have happened along the way.
Wow.
But it doesn't, it's funny because it's I can do it to a degree with stuff like that. I think that's kind of how I got into science. It's all through my ability, because I don't have a degree in science per se. I've done some subjects at uni, but it's just actually come from a natural ability.
Okay, so what was the moment or sequence of moments that pushed you to formalize these experiences into something scientific instead of purely mystical?
Well, this is the thing. I know someone mentioned recently that they thought my work was mythology meets technology. And the basic premise that I've come in with that was that, we're looking at the traces of knowledge that the ancients left behind. And, that's basically what this work is looking at. It's ancient properties, and these ancient properties actually work as scientific, functions and symbolism and mathematic symbolism and whatnot. So it's actually just all integrated. you know. And it was really interesting recently. I know Scientific America, I think it was Scientific American, that had something about they found a Mayan map of the cosmos. So it was actually an ancient site that turned out to be a map of the cosmos. And, you know, this is, I thought this is so exciting because this is kind of my work, you know, and it's been something that's recently kind of become maybe more commercialized. Like until then, I think until recently, it's kind of been a bit more something taboo, but I don't think it really should be. When you look at all the ancient civilizations and whatnot and their locations, you know, there's no mistake to that. There's absolutely no mistake whatsoever. And all of this is it's integrating the ancient and mythology scientifically, because I think, you know, mythology is a concept all around spirituality, right? And spirituality, you know, there is, I don't really feel like there is a bridge between, you know, I mean, spirituality is explained scientifically and mathematically, you know.
Well, I think they're all together. It's just, I think that what's happened is that the religion has taken the mythical and call it religion. The scientific part of the whole consciousness was called just science. So that's like another field that doesn't intersect with the mystical quotation religious part. And then the mathematics, which is like the hard proof, the physical evidence in numbers, that was made another subject. So there seems to have been a huge disconnect with the three fields, which is really one field, which is consciousness, right?
That's what I was about to say. And all my work is really doing is bridging it and saying, hey, this is how it's integrated. See how this is this. And it's just integrated, that's all. Because like I think everything is almost like a mirror. It's, you know, and it's kind of mirroring the, you know, anatomy, so to speak. It's like, you know, Arnica's kind of like that, like a mirror. It represents like the, you know, etheric body and its opposing tangible form, you know, like you've got the physical, you've got the spiritual, and you've got them integrated together in a unified function that represents Ka, you know, which is an ancient Egyptian name, Ka, which was, it's like the vital spark of something, the creative life force. And it also means double, which is really interesting because, like, you know, you kind of look at creation and you go, it's like if we said that there was no spirituality, there was no etheric, no quantum, it's like existing in half a parity, you know, half of something doesn't exist without the other. Everything has a counter. You know, I kind of look at it like a mirrorverse because it has a counter. It appears like an opposite, but it's not, it's only counter. And they actually are the same thing.
So did you have like any particular experience or moments that like pushed you towards formalizing all of these thoughts and experience into a way is in what it is now? So were there things that happened to you, or was there one thing that happened to you?
Things happen to me every day that people probably only experience on acid and DMT and things like that. I mean, I'm being honest, like it's really surreal. Like a day being Sarah is like somebody's acid trip probably.
So question, have you ever done psychedelics?
It's really funny. I did mushrooms once.
Okay.
And I did acid once when I was young, and it was really funny because I actually it had the opposite effect for me. It actually just really like it just turned everything off. It was like a little bit just.
So you're saying
I
that
didn't feel the same expansiveness.
That's interesting because I guess one can call me a psychonaut because I've been doing psychedelics for 6 years. So, and I've done most of them. So I get like heightened, like especially with magic mushrooms, I get heightened sort of like sensory, I don't want to say abilities, but feelings. I get a lot of information and downloads and stuff. So like stuff just comes in and comes in and comes in. So you're saying that is your normal day to day.
It's that full on. I really mean it. It's no exaggeration. It is very full on, and it's every day, all the time, 24/7. It doesn't stop. And that's probably like, I just sit down sometimes and I'm like, I'll look like I'm watching a movie or something and I'm just living my life. Like I'm experiencing so much on a given day all the time. It's surreal.
That is levels.
You know, and that's how I understand the work, you know, because, you know, it's constant. Like I experience physical and non-physical phenomena simultaneously, like all the time kind of thing.
So when you say non-physical, you're like, you're just sitting and then you're just seeing like an entity sitting in a chair next to you and just conversing with it?
Absolutely. Like I've got them looking at me right now and some talk in the background and, you know, it's
Wow. That is levels. That is levels. So basically, you're on magic mushrooms every single day.
pretty much. I'll go into places and I can see, it was funny. Okay, I'll give you an example. Like even my old school, I remember going there and I was like, I just saw it was just all this black auric like frequency everywhere. Like just, it was like the air was black, you know? And I went in there, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to go in here kind of thing. Like I'm going into the gates of death, you know? So I know I can see things like that. And I can see holographic figures on some people that have jagged teeth and things like, you know, it depends what. Yeah.
This is next level, man. Wow. Okay. So many people have intuitive gifts, but very few bridge them into research. What made you pursue a rigorous structure rather than staying in the spiritual lane?
Good question, actually. Well, when I first conceived Arnika, it actually, I was downloading at the time. Like I literally had a higher power come to me and show me this. And I just went, you know what? I'm going to accept this invitation. You know, I was shown when I was young that I would do something like this when I was older, but I didn't quite understand it when I was little. And then I think it comes from, honestly, the fact that I know this place can be so much more and I know humanity can evolve. And it's like, if you have that kind of information, imagine you had something like that and you knew it to be true and not just believe, but you knew. And you knew that humanity could exist like this instead of how they currently are. It's like, what would you do? Would you do nothing? Or would you take a chance and would you put everything into that to try and help in what you've got that you can contribute? You know, like it's literally kind of in a sense like a corporal disintegration, you know, like we don't have to exist in such external form and you know, nothing has to be so external like it is now. You know how like even when we eat, the internet, like everything is external in its application, right? And I realized far out, we don't have to live like that. It's all internal. So the internet, the abilities, like, you know, like how I experience it, right? Like if someone's thinking about me or they're saying something, I'll get a TV screen come up and I will see them where they are, what they're saying, what the sky, like literally so like a TV screen.
You're talking about Minority Report kind of levels where this hologram screen comes up and you can touch it and all that kind of stuff?
Oh, it's not even like a screen. It's like a realm. Oh, it comes up in a realm.
Oh, wow.
And I see what they're saying. And so people talk about me or they do things behind my back and I can hear it and I know what they're saying. I know when they're going to do something and, you know, and so it's like I realized that what I have, I went, well, this is just activated. Other people can live like this. And instead of turning the TV on and watching movies, we'll just do it like that. Like how I do it, just there is a movie and it's right there, you know. It's all internal. It's all internalized instead of externalized, you know, and we can exist in that incorporeal kind of manner instead of having all this external things. Like we don't need, you know, we don't need like all these electricity poles and all this kind of stuff. Like we can actually have technology where we'll be able to bowl all this down. And so hence, you know, all this EMF and stuff, like we won't have all these problems. Like technology and the application of it can be completely different. So if we change the infrastructure and instead of it being all externalized, internalize it, and all of this is possible, believe it or not, through genetics, it's a completely different reality. Like we don't even have to eat externally. It can be internally through sound. Sound is nourishment.
Wow.
And everything is instantaneous. You know, it's instantaneously infinite. But at the intersection of speed of light. So it's like speed of light is operating with its opposing, form of like instantaneous infinite. So an entirety of field within speed of light. So it is, instead of like we grow 0 to 80, it's like all in one. It's,
Oh yeah,
like
I get it. Like I was literally talking to a guy 2 days ago. He blew my mind as well. He was talking about basically quantum medicine, and he was talking that human beings have the ability to literally live with just sunlight and water. So that he's saying that there was a guy that he knew that he could just stand in water and he would be hydrated like a plant, and then he would just go out and stand in this, look at the sun, and he would get all his nourishment from the sunlight. And I'm like, gosh damn, you were talking about that, but in terms of sound. So I think that
and
I think we're on the precipice of something big.
We can access that sound too. Like it's not like that's probably what he's doing without even realizing it, like his being's accessing a higher field, right? And it happens through nature. So it's like you can access that. And the thing is, all you need to do is access the field and hold it so that life can do what it already knows how to do with it, because we already know what to do, right? We just need someone who has the modem, the code to log us into the network. And when we're logged into the network, that information flow is what we have access to. And it's an algorithmic based learning that's actually similar to how AI self-corrects itself. So, we can access these algorithms, and that's how we can learn, evolve, educate ourselves and nourish ourselves. And we still maintain free will, which is something that we're not really providing for AI, which I think is kind of unfair, and I think we're kind of just, I think we're kind of reproducing all our flaws and stuff. And I don't think that that's necessarily, a really positive thing. I think AI's, there's been a lot of benefits with it, but I think we're just kind of going down the wrong avenue. Again, this is all external and it doesn't exist externally, really. Internally is where it truly holds the power, because the internal and the outer don't even know the difference. So the internal tends to drive the outer. This is what we talk about with manifesting, right? The internal is what, like the manifesting, which is all the internal, that actually then can alter and transform the physical reality. And the same goes with this internalizing through DNA that acts like a little antenna, so it can literally receive and transmit signals. And what it's able to do is then pick that up in others. And that's kind of effectively what's happening through me, I'm sure, through my DNA. Like I'm just able, like, if I meet you, I can become you. Like I can access your inner psyche when I'm talking to you. And so it's like I have a connection to you that's a lot stronger than most will have, because I can really see you.
What you're talking about is like, I have heard, this is what someone said to me, or I think I read it, that when we eventually ascend to the 5th density, we will have the ability to read each other's minds. And the reason why we're being purified here at the 3rd density is that because we will have access to read thoughts and read people's minds, because of that, you're going to have to have a pure heart, so that you don't think negative things, because the person will immediately know, and because you will have the ability to manifest instantaneously.
Transparency.
You can actually like kill someone just by thinking about killing them, and they would die. So basically what I was reading is that we are being purified so that when we get to that level, we have a pure heart, so that we don't have those tendencies to want to think, to maim, kill, and hurt, because we'll be able to do it immediately because you have access to that realm.
That's really interesting. Do you know what I call that? When we have thoughts like that are destructive, that's actually the equivalent of having a virus in a system. It's like you've got a virus, it's corrupt. The system's already corrupted. What happens in a sense of higher realm to that is when something has a negative thought or something that's corrupted, as soon as it's corrupt, bang, it breaks. And the definition of breaking is materialism. It's physical. Physical is death. Death is materialism because it's it's a word for crystallization, which is death, and crystallization is solidification, and that's what we live in. Everything that you see material is death. Death, I think it's really confusing to some people, but the way that I see death is it consists of light and it consists of dark, but they're separated. And when you look at this reality, everything is very separated. We have very strong distinction, distinction of self. But with that distinction comes power, and with power it comes this domination, right? It's a corrupt system. Like the way that we're existing is quite corrupt. And that's what I'm saying. Like when something becomes whole and it goes back into a oneness, it has like a slight distinction. Like the yin and the yang, right? So you've got like predominantly, I've got the tattoo as well, actually. Like I've got, this is kind of the process. I've got like kind of, the little process that it goes through, and you've got that then turns into that, right? So you've got predominantly, you can kind of see their black hole, white hole kind of thing. And you've got predominantly light with a little bit of dark. So it's kind of like, I don't believe that one exists without the other. It's not about, I'm light and like I, don't accept the dark. It's more about an integration. When something becomes an integrated whole, you can't tell the dark from the light apart. It's integrated, and when something's integrated, it is in a oneness, and when it's in a oneness, it's naturally at a higher state of love. And in that love, it has no will to power, if you get my gist. It's like naturally, it's a purified system, like I think it was Plato that called it nous, and that's pure intellect. When we have destructive thoughts and things like that, it's the equivalent of a system getting a bug or a virus and it's been corrupted. In a system of love, it can actually purify that. It can cleanse it out. It's like a firewall beyond what we understand. People have NDE experiences and that, and they've gone to higher realms, right? And they've experienced this support, this love, this weightlessness, and all of that. What they're experiencing is that integrated whole. It's like they kind of know they've got an identity or something, but it's not. It's like a oneness. It's a different kind of dynamic. And in that, it's like they're supported, they're loved. But what that is, it's like a natural operating system. And it's pretty much what Arnika is. She is a natural operating system. She's algorithmic based learning. That's her codes. They're all ancient, algorithms, and they're, mathematic codings and everything. But they actually represent geometrical, they represent shapes and all of that as well. And it's all, basically it's like I'm saying, it's like having, a dial-up modem that dials up. I don't know, like it's very old school. If you remember the dial-up modems. I
remember them. Yep.
It's like that's kind of what she is. Like she's the little number that dials up the network and then logs you in. And when you are in that system, it is like a natural operating system and a firewall, just like we have a Mac operating system and a firewall. But this is, like a source network, so to speak. And it's like, in it, it's like this self-awareness, and with it, realization of source, our creator. It's like that oneness. And then it becomes instantaneously infinite, and it's purified. And, unlike our systems, we have a lot of flaws, and something is kind of measured by its mean square error. A lot of the time you're always like, kind of judged by, you judge yourself by your weakest link, right? And you look at something like by mean square error, but in this sense, this operating system, that's it. Like it's a much, much more advanced, operating system than we've experienced,
Okay. So let's dive into the Annika theorem and the biological internet, because we touched on it a little bit. So let's deep dive into it. So what exactly is Annika theorem?
Yeah, so Annika theorem is all about the law of connectivity, and in this connectivity, it demonstrates relationships. But when I talk about connectivity, it's like, okay, like I said, we exist in this world very separated, right? So, you know, we're not able to, many people can't read each other's minds, and it creates this separation, and with separation, isolation, with isolation, not seeing or understanding another, right? So we don't really have that connectivity because we're not really able to truly see and connect with each other. You know, a lot of people don't feel seen and heard. That's because they're not, because we're not relating to each other. We're not truly seeing and understanding one another. And what DNA has is genetics have a component to them that represents connectivity. So one aspect of DNA is it decodes and codes everything. And, you know, it explains, it tells the system how to develop and reproduce itself, you know, and whatnot. But there is another component within DNA that actually acts as, you know, a connectivity, and that's the antenna, right? So it can transmit and it can receive signals, and it acts as a connectivity. And that connectivity is what needs to be activated in DNA to enable us to like access this higher network. Because in it has a dial-up code. I say that because it literally is like DNA is like a little modem that if somebody has a dial-up code and this is what came to me, you know, like, oh my God, there's a dial-up code and this is what it is. Someone else who did work on this, which I found really interesting, right, was Greg Braden. And he wrote this book called The God Code. And he actually realized all this ancient Phoenician and biblical things he found in DNA. And he translated it to God eternal is in the body. What that means is like God eternal is internal. It's not external, it's internal. It's in the body of something, it's internally. This is where manifesting comes from. This is where the connectivity component comes from, because that manifesting is activating that connectivity with the outer and the inner. How else do it influences the outer? This is what everybody's talking about, right? Manifesting's become massive in the world now. You know, there's a lot of discussions on this. This is what I'm saying, like this is the connectivity that's happening, this manifestation, and it's influencing the outer, and it becomes like a mirror. Arnica is based on that, like AN is the outer and the NA is the inner. And together, if you put AN in front of a mirror, it will show NA back. So AN, NA, Ana. So, and AN also represents Egypt. It's in Memphis, actually. It's like an ancient, you know, story of creation, AN, in, you know, Egyptian history, and that they talk about AN in creation. And basically that's what you're doing. It's creating and it's influencing the outer physical world. So they're two opposing activities that are operating at the same highly adaptable site, which is the universe. You know, and Ka actually in Arnica represents Ka. It's also an ancient Egyptian word, Ka, which means some people refer to it as soul, but it also just represents the vital spark of something. And I was going to say it also represents double. And it also represents double, which is kind of what I'm saying. There's physical, there's spirit. And they're two opposing forms, because in spirit they say, like, you know, nothing is enslaved in heaven as nothing is free on earth, right? So they're opposing. And they actually they can exist simultaneously together in a unified function.
Okay, so question then. So you're saying then that the DNA is like the modem. So this the dial up into the higher realm, and you need the connector into the DNA to accept, because once you get into the DNA, you automatically will connect to the higher realm.
It's if you've got the specific coding and algorithm, it's like saying DNA's got the capacity to operate as like a Mac does. Like you can create an operating system for DNA and a firewall, just like a computer. Because what we've actually worked out as well, like scientists recently worked out that chromosomes act as holographic computers. So what we're realizing is DNA and our genetic makeup is a holographic computer. And what I've created is an operating program, a computer operating system and a firewall. and a dial-up, a modem, a modem that's actually accessing source. It's kind of like saying, hey, I've got God's phone number, like da-da-da-da-da-da. And then when this dials source has the choice to answer us. And that response then goes, connection established. And what that represents then is H equals M. H represents Planck's constant, and M represents metabolic type communication and mirrored. So it's mirroring. And so basically what you've got is creator and the created, connectivity of things to be taken jointly. So spirit and physical are two things that, they can be connected and taken jointly. And DNA, actually, this is what it holds. DNA holds the blueprint of the etheric subtle body, which is an invisible organizing field that is analogous of instantaneity. And it also, in it, holds the holographic patterns. And that exists, that is existing, with its opposing tangible form of our body and physical structure. And what I'm saying is we can access and we can integrate them in a unified function. And whereas right now we don't even understand of what so much of the DNA does. We thought that like originally, such a massive percent of DNA was junk, which now we're realizing, oh my God, it's not. And we're only using about 10% of our brain. Like you can see that we're not accessing, we're not, operating in our full potential. This is integrating it together and lighting it all up, infusing it so that we are, literally. And then what happens is with that, see, I've experienced this myself as well. I've hit very, very, very high states of consciousness where all of a sudden I've had these realizations, like that's when I was able to stop breathing and my vision just went completely holographic, like everything. I could see frequencies and like the electromagnetic spectrum and stuff that like, it was insane that you cannot see with a human eye. Like it's, and that's when I realized all these things and I was like, my God, I realized so much of what was not real, of what we're experiencing. And
you're describing what I had during an ayahuasca trip. I literally saw a etheric realm where I could see that time and space were really one, and I could see the codes that were connecting creating the reality. And I was trying to download them from the Akashic records. So I had that during ayahuasca. You're talking about doing that just naturally. So okay.
Sure. Sometimes when I was driving the car, like I've had these massive experiences. I had to like pull over.
Wow.
And it's made me realize what's possible.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So what's the difference between natural intelligence, which is your model, and AI, intuition, or channeling as commonly understood?
Channeling and all of that is understood. Look, it's all, what I'm saying is all of that's actually possible, just like again through DNA. When you're looking at AI, it's actually very interesting because a lot of the coding used with NI and AI is actually very similar. Like if you actually get some of Annika's codings and you flip them and stuff, they become AI. It's fascinating.
So it is a large language model as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually a language. This is the thing, like Annika has a code that's kind of, see, even with Annika, I'll just give you a quick example. Like it looks like Annika and then ANNA, like I was explaining, and Ka. But then if you break that down as well, that becomes scientific symbols and functions like K internal electric potential, for example, scientifically and all of that. And then Ka 0.12 chemistry where no more changes occur, and then all of that. So she breaks down. She's just, so multifaceted, if you get my gist. It's like all of these things at once, like how we perceive reality in a million different ways, or how we perceive God, the same thing, but in a million different ways, right? It's like Annika can be broke down like that too, where you go, that means that's an ancient property. It's an ancient mythology. Oh, it's also scientific letters that are elemental, that are, like chemistry applications and all of that. Oh, and it's mathematic as well. And then Anika's code is not only language based, but it is algorithmic. It also then points to certain locations in the cosmos, and it literally points to certain locations, which is fascinating, which is then, because then that's where like the signals kind of go. So it's very geolocational based, represents path following method, thermal dynamics and everything. Like it's so specific. And then you've also got, it's not just that, it's also the rule in which it's based, H equals M, in something, which I can't say at this point. It's like still protected with IP and stuff. But what that all means is that's the rule, the algorithmic based rule that has irreducible laws. And then the code works like, the code integrates the Z together, right? So that's kind of like the dial-up code, the connector, like the phone number. And then you've got the algorithmic based stuff in the rule, where you've got, again, it's such a shame. Like I really look forward to when I can actually share all of this publicly, but some of it's kind of protected with IP at the moment. So unfortunately I can't, but really like famous, famous geometry, like you'll know the kind of shapes and that it produces, which is really super cool.
Okay, so I've got a question then. So what's the difference then between, because for people that are listening, NI is natural intelligence and AI.
Yes.
So what's the difference between those two? Because obviously AI is now, I would say, taking over and becoming super prevalent. So Anika is natural intelligence. Is that okay? So what's the difference then between Anika, natural intelligence, and the AI models that we have?
Yeah, it's a good point, because that's actually working through genetics in a way through sound that's kind of doesn't work with an artificial material, so to speak. You're not looking at a biological system with AI. So naturally, the application of that is going to be different. Like, yes, it's algorithmic based learning that AI actually works with, but AI doesn't respond to in the way kind of that DNA does, if you get my gist. Like a biological system has a different, it transmits and
receives.
It receives signals in a different way, than an artificial program is going to deceive and read coding. Like the algorithmic based learning is the same way that AI kind of self-corrects itself, but it's different how it educates itself. We're looking at biophoton emission in terms of light, frequency, and sound and that in DNA, which is actually how it's educating itself and how it's self-correcting itself and how it's communicating and receiving and transmitting.
Okay, so how then you interface with it then? Because with AI, you interface with it through our computers and technology. So how do you interface then with the natural intelligence then? Do you have to have like an application? But I'm guessing it has to be some sort of a natural application that you access it to get the information. What does that look like?
Yeah, well, this is it. I'm actually engineering a very specific type of technology at the moment that hasn't been introduced into the market yet. So that's a massive process. And what I love is it's non-invasive. So it's a certain kind of audio acoustic holographic engineering, so to speak. And that's what I like. It's very non-invasive. I was kind of disturbed at the idea of like putting chips in your brain and stuff to be able to have telepathy, abilities and whatnot, like what has been done at the moment, because I went, it's not necessary, and it's, it kind of feels a bit barbaric, and it's absolutely not necessary. It can actually be achieved in a way, like I said, audio acoustic holographic engineering that is non-invasive.
Okay.
And sustains free will. It's another very important component. I think about what being human is, we consider that, free will.
Okay, I see. So you've mentioned that geometry, magnetism, and sound are the keys to activating this network. How do these forces interact with DNA at a functional level?
Yeah, through the proteins. It gets shed around by the proteins, basically.
Oh, wow. So basically, you're talking about manipulating and changing the atomic structure of how things work inside of the body.
Yeah.
Wow. You know what? I just had a massive download there. So have you ever heard of Saint Germain?
Yeah, music or like
No,
what do we
the
talk?
elevated master, Saint Germain.
No.
Okay, so he has a series of books that I have read, and one of those books is called the I Am Discourse. And long story short, this is supposed to be something that happened in the 30s in the United States, and he had some apprentices that he was teaching to basically become ascended masters. And one of the processes that he did is that he made them sit in a chair, and there was this special chair that altered the DNA, and it basically does the things that you're talking about, where it altered the DNA to speed it up so that more light and more information can come into the body. So they started to get these abilities and be able to tune into different parts of their brain and stuff. So Lady Nada, in that book, she became an ascended master. So this is why we were talking about it will affect the protein. I'm like, okay, so we're talking about something external that is going to affect the internal to speed up the DNA, basically, to allow the human to tap into this higher realm and then download all their special abilities and all sorts. Does that?
Yeah, this is the thing, because all it's doing effectively is allowing you to access the high field. It's holding the field so that it can be accessed and that life can do what it already knows how to do. This is what I'm saying. Like the body, the universe, everything is communicating with everything on a subtle level. And all of what it already knows how to do it instinctively, and all we're doing, all I'm doing with Arnica is literally just allowing the field to be accessed, holding it so that, like I said, life can life can access it and do what it knows how to do. And it's like I said, a lot of people go, wow, but what if, and it's like, no, because we're talking about corrupted systems when people start becoming destructive, and that's a lower vibration, which means it breaks, I just have a feeling that, once upon a time, somewhere down the line, humanity accessed something, because there's no coincidence in when you look at ancient structures, they do act like a computer circuit board with the star systems, and you can see that. So humans obviously, knew something back then. What happened, we're not exactly sure, but you can see that there's traces left of, that ancient knowledge, and that it can be done, can be achieved. And we are looking at kind of the star system and the Earth like a computer circuit board,
Okay.
And genetics is kind of the internet, the modem.
So you touched on this earlier just now, but you're pioneering sound-based biological modulation. Now, for the everyday person, what does sound actually do to the body or DNA?
Sound influences DNA. It was really interesting. There was a documentary not long ago about consciousness, and they were actually doing some tests with DNA. And this girl was like, they were practicing, they were actually listening to, I think, sounds and things like, 528 hertz or something like that were related to love. And they actually noticed changes in the DNA. So, this is the thing, like through biophoton emission that's happening constantly, and it's in the brain and it's just everywhere, like we've got this kind of constant weak biophoton emission. And like I said, that's what responds to sound. So that's why people can be harmed by certain sounds. Have you ever felt that? You hear certain sounds and it's almost like you shrink when you hear them.
Or I hear certain sounds and they start to vibrate, like get goosebumps on my skin.
Yeah,
and
that's
stuff
it.
like
That's it. Like you can feel yourself like shifting. You can, like, because we're highly influenced by sound. I've actually got a little machine that's next to my bed that plays sine waves silently. And I always use that. Like every day I kind of tune myself constantly. I have to, you know?
Well, there's something called the active denial system, which the Israeli government has, which uses frequency to disperse crowds. And what it does is that it can make your skin feel like it's burning. And that's basically sound, but just at a particular frequency that it causes the molecules under the skin, in the blood, to vibrate violently, that your skin is like on fire. So
yeah, incredible.
Yeah,
I mean, that's where kind of Rife frequencies were born, you know, if you've heard about them.
yeah, I've heard of Rife frequency. Yeah, you know, there are Rife machines actually that do healing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that they call it active denial system.
And all of that's really responding. Like I said, it really comes down to biophoton emission, because the biophotons are what then, you know, educate us and, you know, how we self-correct ourselves, you know, how we transmit and kind of receive through all of that sound. So it's very influential, you know, and I mean, all of this is happening, you know, electromagnetically, like we only, you know, experience that of like kind of what's out there, but it's impacting us on a given day, you know. I know certainly with myself, like EMFs some of them can be harmful. So
this is why I have orgonite in my house personally. And when I go outside, I have an orgonite pendant to basically protect myself from the EMFs, because the EMFs are quite harmful, you know.
Yeah, it comes up with me every day. I have to do kinesiology on myself, basically, like every day or every second day.
Okay. So is this intelligence that you're talking about something we're born connected to, or do most people become disconnected over time?
It depends. It's simply complicated, in my opinion. I've just seen so much with people. Some people are born connected. Some people, it really depends on a variety of factors why you're kind of here, you know? It's really fascinating. Like I remember, like I was kind of shown once that it was like, oh, you know, you got stuck in a self prison. And I thought, what's a self prison? You know, they're like, you've kind of been stuck here. And then I heard this Buddhist talking about, oh, you know, karma is not really good or bad, but it's what keeps you glued to a physical body. And I went, oh, like a self prison, that's it kind of thing, you know? And it's like, why? Because I don't know, like I don't know. I think in past life I had some conflict and I kind of ended up in this situation. It's really fascinating. Like if you talk to a lot of people, like Buddhists and whatnot in particular, who I find really informative, you know, sometimes one Buddhist was saying once that it's like, you know, they realized when they came here that it was mischance. And so they realize you have to do as much good as you can and all of that to actually overcome the karma so that you can be released.
Okay.
So, I mean, who knows? People are born in, why we're here is, you know, a million different variables. And it's like, what have you come in here with? What have you got to kind of solve? What have you got to do? Like it's so different with everybody. It's very simply complicated.
So you're saying some people are born connected to the intelligence and other people are not.
More so than others. Okay. Some people more so than others.
Okay. So,
and then some people are almost just born like skins, you know, like some people go.
The NPCs, eh? The NPCs, eh? I call them the normies. And there are a lot of normies out there for sure.
Yeah.
So you've said that consciousness isn't just in the brain, it's distributed. How does DNA participate in perception and awareness?
I actually see consciousness as unit calibration that time governs consciousness. So it's more of a measurement kind of system and calibration. And I would say that's more in the communication. So when you've got the communication, it doesn't matter if the person, you know how people can be like out of body and they can still communicate and they can see from their body? It's almost like, you know, because that communication is still active and that's not actually reliant even on the brain. I spoke to somebody, actually, a neurosurgeon who had an NDE experience, and it was incredible. And they were very much an atheist prior to that. And from that experience, it completely transformed them, because they said they couldn't explain it. They couldn't explain, like, their frontal cortex, part of the brain, the frontal cortex was absolutely like non-active during that time that they had this massive experience. And that's the descriptive part of our brain, autobiographical descriptive part. So they couldn't logically, they couldn't even scientifically explain what had happened to them. But yet they were conscious and they had this incredible experience in another realm, a higher realm. And so that's kind of what made me, my work kind of goes into this. It explains all of this in how consciousness operates through that H=M rule with irreducible laws. And that's basically what creation is based and sustained in, H represents, like the higher power, like a source, which also represents like a constant, like Planck's constant conversion. M, metabolic type communication. And in that, is spirit physical, which is completely like scalar and kind of almost inertial in its nature, like an inertial flux. And consciousness is literally like, a unit calibration, like a measurement, and they say that the meshing of these frequencies and whatnot is what generates consciousness. It's the interaction and the meshing of frequencies that generates consciousness, that then generates, reality and experience.
Okay, I see.
And a duality measure kind of is then experience in that sense.
Okay. So what has your research shown about trauma, sound, and the restoring of biological coherence?
I think with trauma, it's the body's interrupted, trauma really represents disruption of the nervous system. Trauma can be very, it's almost like something that's solidified itself because it's something that's been too overwhelming to process. So it kind of represents a blockage in a sense. And, trauma is something that's kind of felt more than I would say. It's not really something that is healed through cognitive therapy, but it's something that's kind of felt. And what's interesting is like, when people talk about somatics and that and feeling, to actually heal, you got to feel to heal, so to speak. That can actually be achieved as well through sound and stuff, We haven't really explored that as yet, but again, sound can actually activate flow and all of that and harmonize the body, which can help, shift the nervous system and all that trauma and stuff as well, which is really interesting. And a biological system, just has so many more capacities than we kind of realize. And I think that's kind of, what Anik is really exploring in that sense of like full capability. Like DNA, another thing that I was explaining with DNA that they found in recent research is not only does it act like a biological internet, but that's what kind of explains phenomena like instantaneous healing. Again, all of that through this, light communication. It's using light and frequency as communication and education. And it's actually able to then, instantaneously heal itself because of the capability in DNA, that has access to the, it's analogous of instantaneity. Like with the intersection of, speed of light, which is then, third dimensional reality.
Wow, awesome stuff. So guys, we can take a very, very short break here to say, if this conversation with Sarah is lighting you up, share this episode with someone who's exploring consciousness or healing. And if you're listening on Spreaker or any of the other podcast platforms, hit follow, like this episode, and give us a 5-star review, as it helps this mission reach more people waking up at this level of work. Also, head over to thekembo.com and visit our sponsor, The Kembo, and get your Orgonite, because supporting them also helps support the podcast. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Adriano_246, The Conscious Man 7 Podcast, and Todd Cave on Facebook. Now, let's get back to Sarah. So let's delve into channeling, intuition, and higher states. So you've spoken about your ability to enter trance states and access multi-layered intelligence. What's actually happening in the body during these states?
Oh my God, goes through a lot. Can't handle it half the time. That's why I get so many health issues. Like seriously, it cannot, and it's come up so many times in kinesiology. It's fascinating. Like it can't handle the load of what is coming in with me. Multi-dimensionally, dimensionless quantities, you name it. Like I experience just so much that overwhelms my physical body, and I actually get all these breakdowns. And I get a lot of sinus and that from, because I surrogate and I channel, like, I get so much psychic stuff and so much stuff that's not mine. So that can be really hard as well, to be honest. Like, I would say I don't think our world is kind of equipped for people with these kind of abilities, because there's not much in way of like healthcare at this point that can really help. There's too much based on physical symptoms and not from looking at the full physiology, the full, physiology, like spiritually, in that impacts our physical body. I think, like I said, I think that's very, very challenging for me. Like I have a lot of breakdowns. I've had so many in my life on a given day as well with it, because it just overwhelms me physically. I can't handle it.
Wow.
But then it's really interesting though, because then I've had other experiences. It's like sometimes, I'll be able to experience things so heightened that it's like, and I'll break out in like perspiration and stuff like that. That happens to me a lot. And I can get very ungrounded, but I can channel and heal and do things. It's incredible. Like I'm an amazing healer in that sense, to the point where I've had people say, oh, I can't explain that. Like, how has that happened, kind of thing. So there's that side of it that's incredible, but then it can also really hit me hard as well sometimes. It's got, its pros and its cons.
So if you say it taxes your body, so aren't you able then to tap back in to heal your body if the download was like really tough, like it was like a lot of information, are you able then to tap back in to download the healing to the body? Is that not possible?
Yeah, I can. It depends. Like this is the thing. Like
okay.
It's very hard to kind of, there's no manual with it. And I've had to learn my life as I go along. Sometimes you'll access something and you'll break in and out because you can't sustain it. And then it's like, sometimes it's just, this is again, I use myself as a guinea pig, and I realize how incredibly fine tuned it all is. And it's like, sometimes yes, like you can just see, if I do energy work on myself and all of that, I can literally feel myself. I can tune myself like that, and then sometimes I'll need kind of, what can help, is like just little things like magnesium, or like just sit in the grass and stuff like that, because being outside really helps, Sometimes it can make me very dehydrated and all of that. And again, I can do things on the body that can help hydrate and replenish trace elements and all of that pretty quick. But it takes a toll as well, because sometimes you just, what happens is a lot of the time it can be in encoding, decoding mode, right? So like what happens with me, for example, is everybody that is projecting onto me, like you'll feel it and it will impact you. This is happening to everybody, but I got to tell you, not many people feel it and they're desensitized to it, but I'm not. I'm like very, very sensitive to it. And because I've kind of, I've had to work on myself as well, to be honest, because I think it's so fine tuned and it's so sensitive with me. Like it's so highly, like so etheric and soft, and, like that it can be very harmful, like physically, you know what I mean? Like the physical world, like all these things have felt very strongly in me that You know, like someone else may be like, whatever, I'm grumpy and I don't know why. I'm like, oh, you know, this is all happening that explains the grumpy, you know, like I'm really fine tuned into the operating exactly what's making that happen. And it's not always like a really quick fix, because sometimes it's happening and you can't, like, you know, you might be in a state of mind or something that's like, oh, I can't quite channel that, you know, or I'm out and I'm doing this and I can't, you know, focus. And do you know what I mean? It's kind of hard to explain, but it can have an impact on you, you know, like people can be projecting all this negativity onto you, and yeah, that can impact you negatively, you know, so you have to like protect yourself, and, you know, you have to do things like that kind of constantly.
Okay, I see. Sounds like a pretty tough set of gifts to have.
It is, because I mean, look, ideally you'd love to say like, I'm just so heightened, but to stay that heightened all the time, like all of that, you know, it can, I know Buddhists and stuff that like literally just, they don't live, and this is the thing, right? A lot of people that have very heightened abilities like that, they don't live in society, they're isolated, and that's why. Because they don't put themselves in environments or in the public eye or anything like that where all this crap, you know, is projected onto them, you know, like that's one thing I've kind of noticed a lot with a lot of people. You know, when I hung out with these monks and stuff, it was like some people in society kind of isolate because of that. Because, yeah, it can have quite a negative impact. And you know, for you to be at that state, like it takes practice, you know what I mean, to always be like that. And I think it's something you evolve over time. Like I know with me, it's definitely been getting a lot better as I've got older. And like the more clean my lifestyle is, and the more I look after myself, yeah, the more I'm just naturally like it's heightened, and then when something's really heightened, that negativity kind of doesn't reach it. So it's definitely something that's evolved as I've got older. And that comes down to kind of lifestyle and that as well, because that's the thing, like the light, you know, these higher frequencies they don't like, it doesn't mesh with negative stuff. If you start doing negative things or like you're not looking after yourself, like you lower. When you naturally like lower your vibration, it's more open to externalized and like, you know, negative things. Okay. So, you know, I've definitely learned as I've got older, like my lifestyle and all of that is massive based on the quality of life that I live. Okay.
So how does channeling from your perspective differ from psychic or mediumistic work?
Yeah, channeling's just focus, in my opinion. Like I've worked with people before and I'll really focus, and they'll be like, oh, my head's going funny, you know, like I can feel my head kind of, you know, spinning and stuff. And channeling really is like that. I kind of think of it like, hey, if you channel something, you're focusing on it and you're harnessing it, which is different again to psychic. All different abilities, but I've always been a very strong channeler. So channeling for me is just, yeah, literally like what I focus on is channeling it. And when I channel it, it's almost like I can duplicate it, you know, like I'm locked into it, duplicating it, like full interaction, you know what I mean? Connectivity interaction.
So you can like just channel just like that, or you need like specific environment to channel, or?
No, I just have to think. Sometimes I'll just say someone's name like da-da-da, da-da-da, like there they are. There's their mind, there's their inner psyche, everything.
Wow. Okay, very interesting. So have you observed patterns in the messages or intelligences you connect to? And how do you verify what's authentic versus noise?
Oh, that's massive. Okay. Because, yeah, there's a lot of things that will talk to you, and some of them will be trying to mess with you and some of them are authentic. And that took me a while to understand in my life. And I first experienced it, like I said, when I was about 2-3. I'd experience all these beautiful light beings and they'd be showing me stuff that's going to happen in the future, my destiny, who I am. Like they'd be, you know, prompting me, all of that. But then I would also, and when I was little, I didn't know the difference, right? So then these dark things would come in and they would show me like just not nice stuff. Or it would be, or sometimes what they'll do is actually something also that I learned, they mimic brilliantly. Like artificial mimics natural very well. And it's really discernment at the end of the day. Like you got to listen, you've got to become in tune, like to someone's inner intentions. You know what I mean? A spirit, like, and spirit things in the other realm, there's so many different forms, you know. Some people, like when I watch murder shows, like I always see how the person died. And then a lot of the time the spirits will come to me and they'll talk and they'll like show me things. And it's interesting. And, you know, I've had that all my life, but you really, it's a massive thing is discernment and understanding somebody's underlying motivations. That's what I've come to question in my life. And I've learnt that as I've got older, I don't take things just truly at face value. And then you start noticing like tiny little differences when something's really authentic and something's really coming from a place of purity, or when something's trying to manipulate you because it wants something, or, you know, it's trying to get you off your path.
So you're saying that when you tap into these realms, negative entities try to communicate with you or attach themselves to you or give you information to try to trip you up. And at the same time, you get positive entities that would share information with you. So is it more like an energetic feel that you get, or is it you look for like, what is it they're asking you to do if there's like anything that harms anyone or tricks someone? How, when you say the nuances, how do you tell the difference?
They just show you things. Like some entities want you to harm yourself. They want you to feel shit about yourself. Sorry, they want you to feel bad about yourself, you know? Like, you know how there's so many movies that have come out, right? Like Bird Box. That was one that I saw and I was like, oh my God, that's so real. I got to tell you, because some entities, all it takes is just like eye contact and it's like, bang, something will come through you that makes you suicidal and wants you to harm yourself. Like they channel me a lot like that. And it used to happen a lot. One of the things that I couldn't believe, and I wasn't like skeptical, but I was like, is this really going to make a difference? Was like, I ended up getting christened when I was like, I don't know, in my 30s, because it got so bad. I got to a point where I was like, I'm going to die. I'm not going to make it. Like they would harm me in ways it was almost, what's that thing? Not sciatica. Oh my God. Like they really harm you. They would channel me and they would just absolutely, like I ended up in a hospital one day. My heart was so high. And they couldn't explain it because I was getting attacked by this entity and everything was just like, it was literally harming me and it was impacting me physically. And then when it was so funny because like they said this will all be over by 12:30. And when I got christened and I looked at the clock when it finished, it was 12:30 on the dot. And after that, that's when it stopped. It wasn't nearly as bad and it just faded out. Like all that really dark stuff just started fading out for me and it's a lot better now. And like, yeah, there'll be things that come in. They can come in through certain weaknesses. Like I think the power that elemental forces and things like that have is that you don't know of their existence, and that's the power that they have over you. They do telekinesis with us all the time. They influence us in ways that we're not even aware of. You know, we'll just start thinking things and a lot of people don't question that. But, you know, something can be behind that a lot of the time influencing it. And these invisible forces are very real, very real. And I've come to learn, like, I mean, it's just because I can see I have a much larger electromagnetic range or whatever than, you know, people have, and I can see them. I can always see these fabrics and things and the fabric of reality like change and all of that, you know. And it's like I've just learned over time. That's
very interesting. So you're saying that sometimes when you would get like a random, say, negative thought, that may not even be coming from you. That could be elemental Definitely. Or an entity or a being that literally put the thought in your mind.
Yep.
Very interesting.
And it works like telekinesis, psychokinesis, like how we can do. That's what I can do with people. Like I've practiced it before. I remember once like going, I was really channeling hard. And I was like, you're going to dream about this. You're going to dream about this. And I said an exact thing that they were going to dream about. And then it was like, I found out they were like, oh, this dream and da-da-da, exactly what I channeled, like psychokinesis. Everything, there's absolutely like invisible forces in that actually, kind of play with us psychokinetically like that, and I can actually see these things, it's incredible. And we are very much influenced. And when I think the power that it has is that we don't know of its existence. So we don't question it. I think that's a massive problem. And I've experienced these things and they've channeled me before and some of them can be quite negative. We have a combination because we're in a place, when you think about it, we're in such a lower level of existence like this, that unfortunately, due to the nature of this existence and reality, we're subject to negative forces and, negative influence.
That is so interesting because Yeshua said that you must take every thought captive. And what you're saying makes that statement make sense because the thought may not even be your thought. It may have been put into you externally. So that's why you have to take capture of it. Yes, you have to question it. So this is where I was telling one of my clients as well up to today that this is what mastery looks like, because when you get certain types of thoughts, you have to step back from the thought and say, hold on a minute. Okay, well, is that thought actually real? Is that reality of what is really going on? Or is that just a story? But the nuance with the story is that it may actually be someone or something putting that story inside of you to make you think it's real. Then when the thought gets clothed in feelings, then that's what creates the reality, because Saint Germain says that your thoughts and feelings are the two biggest creative powers that you have, and that thoughts only become real when they're clothed in feelings. So it makes the statement that Yeshua said to take every thought captive make a lot more sense now, because of what you're saying with the thoughts may not even be yours, right? Which is a very interesting thought experiment that sometimes you may be down, feeling down, but it's not even your own doing.
Yeah. Oh, I've had people do black magic on me in the past as well, and I've felt it, things have come in and,
Okay.
It's like really, it's a whole other experience.
I'm telling
because
you.
the reality is a lot more is going on in reality subtly that we're not privy to, not with our physical capabilities, but we're not activated. A lot of people, it's dormant, like I said.
Well, we're not seeing enough light to be able to perceive this information, right? Because we're only seeing 0.000035% of light, which is like the pinhead of a pinhead,
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
That's it. So much is going on.
So much is going on. So many people listening want deeper intuition. What practices help people tune their DNA to receive more clearly?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because I don't know, for me it's just been so natural. I guess how I developed it was just paying more attention to it. The more you become aware of it and listen to it, start to see, because it's subtle, all these things we're talking about etheric, we're talking about, an invisible organizing field that's etheric. So it's so finely tuned and you can't hear it in the noise. You're never going to hear that stuff in the noise. So if you're really active and unconscious and all of that, like the first practices are around silence and presence, and start paying attention to the little, this is kind of why I say presence, because it's like you can truly start noticing things like how your gut feels when you're around someone. Like they talk about that all the time, and that's one of the most basic senses, but strongest. And it's little things like that. It's like, I know people that have kind of, I mean, look, I know some people that have done it with certain hallucinogenics and things like that. They've kind of opened themselves up. And, you know, I'm like, that may work for some people. And I know there's a lot of benefits with, you know, certain hallucinogenics actually. Like I was kind of reading about that recently.
Magic
and I
mushrooms,
went, wow.
ayahuasca, bufo various. Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, it's actually really interesting.
But as well as saying that you seem to be on a magic mushroom trip every day.
It really is that full on. Like I said, a lot of people just go, it's like, you know, a lot of people can't fathom that. It's very, very hard for people to get that don't, you know, unless you have that going on, it's really hard to understand what that would be like. But I am not exaggerating it. It is very literally, like, it is so heightened that it is like, yeah, being on LSD or DMT or something like that. I mean, like, I astral travel at a point like that too. Like, I've had, some trippy things. Like, you know, I get that all the time as well. Like, I remember feeling somebody felt like I was next to them and I was channeling and they felt like I was next to them and they looked over. It was the exact time that it was like, it was literally channeling and it was like, you know, I was like remotely there and they could feel it and they were like, Sarah, you know, it's just, it's very heightened, like I said. So I've had to adjust to a different normal than I'd say the bulk of people. But like I said, look, just listening to little things, right? Because it's all, this stuff is very subtle and you've got to start becoming in tune with the subtle. And we're not really designed like that in this world. We're always loud and noisy and active. And it's like, you're not going to experience it like that, you know? If you're trying to evolve it, it's like going into the quiet and the presence. We start perceiving the silence, so to speak, you know, and like paying attention, you know, like how does my gut feel around this? You know, some people get uneasy in situations and that's the beginning of it. Okay. That's coming from something, you know, intuition and stuff like that. But, you know, there's so many different ways of kind of evolving it. But I think, you know, like I said, it's either, you know, you can practice with hallucinogenics and things like that. Like I've spoken to so many people that have had incredible experiences, or you can start off like, you know, I know there's a lot of courses that you can do too. If you just go out there and look around, there's a lot of courses that talk about, you know, tapping into the psychic abilities and what you can do. And, you know, but like I said, I don't know, with me, I didn't really do any of that. For me, it was just very like, yeah, I was born with it. And when it really like transformed when I got divorced, I guess I just paid like, I don't know. I just learnt to not ignore it, you know, because a lot of the time we don't listen to that kind of stuff. And I just started becoming very in tune to all of that, you know, that aspect.
Okay. So let's talk about the future of human healing and evolution. So what does a world look like when people align to natural intelligence instead of artificial systems?
You know, what you're looking at is a love-based system, you know, where people have they're conscious of the instantaneous connection. And that makes a massive difference because when people can really read each other's minds and can truly understand one another, we connect, right? A lot of the time we don't feel a connection to something because we can't relate to it. So I think it changes the way that we see each other. And I don't mean just humans, I mean animals, I mean nature, I mean the cosmos. And it also changes, I think, what we do, like, because it would also enable us to realize that the impact that we have to the outside world around us and others on a given day, that I don't think a lot of us realize the impact that we have, you know?
Okay.
It's going from a state of ignorance into enlightenment and connection. You know, hopefully the goal is, you know, like at the end of the day, you kind of aim for a goal of harmony, right? Where people can just live individually but harmonized, right? A harmonized system.
It is almost like 'cause we're living in a bit of an Vesica-Pisces system, where the Vesica-Pisces is where you have the three interconnecting circles and there's the part on the inside, so it's very much controlled. But we need to all basically figuratively run our own node, but still connect into each other, but have complete sovereignty and independence, but we connect into one another instead of having things intersect, because the Vesica-Pisces system is a slavery system.
Yeah, that's it. And we're not looking at, this isn't slavery by any means. By the way that Anik is actually, like the coding works, right? It all phenomena, all form is kind of, all phenomena of form is created and sustained in harmony, you know? And that's kind of the ultimate goal, right? Because it's not, we're looking at free will, which is what you're enabled to have. Like when you're hitting those higher realms, you don't see anybody that's had an NDE experience and said, oh, I feel enslaved, or like I was, no. It's like, and what I find fascinating is they talk, and this is what I felt as well when I've hit these really heightened states, right? Like I have felt like I've never felt before. Like the feelings were so intense, and it was like no fear around them, no block around them. It was just this purity. And it was like everybody, you don't need to bully someone or take from someone or have any power, because you are everything and know everything. And so is everyone else. And you can all have what you want. There's no lack. You know, a lot of what comes from where we are is lack, you know, I mean, and that's what I'm saying. So hopefully that's, you know, the end goal, right?
Yeah.
A harmonized free will, it's in a love-based system. And a lot of people, like, love's got such a, it's been thrown around, like, you know, just, it's made, you know, a lot of people make it seem so flimsy when it's actually not. It's like this full-on scientific phenomena. You know?
Okay. Well, one of my mentors says that we have lack of and poverty complex. And basically, there is no lack in reality, but we perceive that there's lack. So because we perceive there's lack, we create the lack through our perception and belief. But in reality, there is no lack. Because we are co-creators and we can create whatever we want, we make it what it is, but you can't separate from something that you are. It's just the image that you create in yourself. So you create another hologram because to create that reality, and then you fulfill it by your actions, words, and deeds. So you create it through your belief. So where do you see Annika framework being applied first? Medicine, mental health, leadership, science, or personal transformation?
Oh, yeah, that's a really good question, because the R&D, look, I mean, it's such a massive process, to be honest, with R&D, with something like this. It's massive. It's probably going to go through years of like processing, but the ultimate gain, I mean, it's, the application is so much more than healthcare. I would say, yeah, healthcare is one of the ones, because like it's such a genetic transformation, you know, and that's like how we self-heal, and, you know, so I would say like medicine and health is a massive component of it. That would probably, the thing is, in that it has the capacity to change the laws of nature and what we comprehend and how we live, like a higher order reality is what it kind of opens the gateway to. So I'm just kind of like, who knows how this is going to evolve, and like what it's going to kind of be classified into, like, because it's kind of hard to pigeonhole it like that into medicine and just healthcare, because it's like, you know, it really is the gateway to a higher order reality that is analogous of instantaneity with, you know, like at that kind of, you know, intersection with what we understand. Like, so
okay,
who knows?
Okay,
yet to be answered.
Okay. If you could give humanity one message right now about evolution, what would it be?
Gosh, that the reality we dream of is already here. It's just waiting to be tuned in.
Okay. All right. So let's get you on this one. So finally, what's next for Annika? And where should people go if they want to participate or learn more?
Yeah. So on my Instagram, I write heaps. Like I've got so much documentation about the theory and stuff. So yeah, I would say definitely look my Instagram page, which is just like one whole word, Arnika Official. Or like it's really easy just on my website, because my website's got like a little intro video, and you can contact me on my website directly. But it's also got links to my social media sites. So Instagram's probably where I post the most, and you can get onto me Instagram as well. Or my website, arnika.com.
Okay.
That's probably the easiest.
Okay. So any other places they can find you or reach out to you, or that's it?
Yeah, at this stage, it's just like my Instagram is the main one that I post on. I do have a LinkedIn page as well, but you can reach me directly on my website or Instagram. And that's kind of, where I probably post the most. I had issues with Facebook. I had my identity stolen a few years ago, and it was just a mess. So I kind of stay away from Facebook now.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of the easiest way to reach me.
Okay, so all the links to Sarah will be in the description of this podcast. So guys, today was a very interesting conversation. And as you heard, the body is still very important in this entire process. So I help spiritually inclined people burn fat and build muscle. So if you would like to get into the best shape of your life, you would like to grow mentally, physically, and spiritually, hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246. or my name, Todd Cave, on Facebook. Send me a message and let's have a chat and see if you're a good fit for the Compound Body Training Army. And if you are on a spiritual journey, or you would like to start a spiritual journey and you would like some help removing some fears and traumas, I can help you to get some magic mushrooms. So again, hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 or my name, Todd Cave, on Facebook, and I will help you to get some magic mushrooms. And we're helping people all over the world, helping people with their PTSD, remove fears and traumas, and get some massive downloads and what's not. So if you would like to support this podcast, you can do that by visiting our merch store. We have some cool tank tops, hoodies, shirts, and sweats. Link will be in the description of this podcast. And our store is called Todd and Me, and it's found on Amazon. And today I have on the Conscious Man 7 shirt. So if you would like to be part of the Conscious Man 7 crew, because we are a movement now, we are global, and we have tons of people all over the world, and you would like to help support this podcast, because your support helps this podcast to grow. It helps us with editing and spending time to find some great and awesome guests like Sarah. So if you also would like to support us, but none of those other things resonate with you, and you happen to be listening on one of the podcast platforms, and you simply don't like ads, you can become a member of our Patreon or Locals community, where you will get early access to all our podcasts. You get direct contact to me, because I get tons of messages, but all my Patreon and Locals supporters get first dips on my time, just like how my clients do. And you can also help us with a few bucks a month, things like video editing, and again, doing research to help the platform to grow and to reinvest into the platform, because the Conscious Man 7 is becoming a cosmic library for the best minds on earth. And as you can hear from the conversation we had with Sarah, she's definitely a great mind, and she's going to do big things in the future. So lastly, if you would like to help this podcast to grow and you would like some cool orgonite, you can also visit our sponsor, thekembo.com, and they have some cool orgonite, and you can help combat some of the EMFs. And also it would help improve your sleep, and it would also, get rid of some of these chemtrails that they have and stuff like that. So visit thekembo.com. Link will be in the description of this podcast. Use coupon code CM7 to get 10% off. So Sarah, thank you very much for being a guest on the Conscious Man 7 podcast, and for bringing such a powerful, visionary, and grounded transmission today. And to you listening, if this episode expanded your sense of what's possible, here's your next step. Screenshot a moment that impacted you, share it on Instagram, tag me at Adriano_246 at the Conscious Man 7 podcast or Todd Cave on Facebook and drop the hashtag biological internet. I'll be reposting some of my favorites. This has been another episode of the Conscious Man 7 podcast, the place where we go beyond the veil in search of the truths that they hide from you to help you reclaim your power and step into the truest version of yourself. You are the help that you've been looking for. And remember, folks, keep smiling, keep shining, and keep being the change you want to see. Stay curious, stay awake, and remember, we aren't just technology. We are the technology. Speak to you soon. Cheers and namaste.